Hello humans. Want to know how they did the acid for blood effect in the Alien movies? No, probably not, because there's quite a few videos out there that have already done it. But we really wanted to do it, so we've done it anyway, and that's why we've gone a step too far. Now, before we get into the good business of melting floors and limbs, did anybody notice that the scene was in fact shot on a virtual production stage? Aha! You know us, we can't afford to build an entire sci-fi set circa 1980s Ridley Scott for an underperforming YouTube video. Apart from this console, obviously. But that's for a later episode on JP's Bench. And the alien in the ceiling, that was a miniature. But beyond that, we needed the help of Bristol's virtual production specialists, Distortion Studios. And we've worked with them to build an Unreal environment worthy of the gods of retrofuturism. And there will be more VP goodness down the line. But right now, let's do some acid. The first time we saw the alien blood do its thing, a splash of liquid dissolves the floor, revealing bubbling infrastructure beneath. This is acetone melting polystyrene board. The effect is then made way more impressive when the crew run down to the lower decks to find multiple floors have been melted through. In these cases, we're looking at floors and ceilings created by the art department to look melted. Then all they need to do is add some AB smoke onto the surface to make them look like they'd been melted. They used loads of AB smoke in Aliens to create the instant appearance of a burning surface. AB smoke is made of two separate acids which, when mixed, cause a chemical reaction, releasing a pretty unpleasant vapour. Seriously, if you'd smelled this stuff, you'd understand how horrible this must have been for the cast during these takes. However, effects supervisor John Richardson used AB smoke to great effect by rigging dummy and puppet alien figures to explode acid on cue. Squibs with part A and B fluids were rigged so that upon detonation they would mix together in the air, giving a truly unique impact effect. The new film Alien Romulus has some seriously impressive effects. The space imagery is stunning, and there's a clear dedication to the practical approach, with legends like Alec Gillis returning to the franchise and creating some of the best looking effects we've seen in years. For our little scene, we needed to conduct some tests into the best materials to use for our acid blood effects. A test with 10mm thick expanded polystyrene and a small amount of acetone quickly melted a hole, but the compacted polystyrene balls became very visible. Also, a white surface is no good. So we painted our polystyrene surface with a solvent-free black hairspray, but it acted as a barrier to stop the acetone from eating through the surface. Also, strongly pigmenting the acetone to match the alien blood appeared to dilute its effect. By exposing the polystyrene with a white pre-made hole, undiluted acetone was able to do its thing, but as it progressed you could still see the telltale bright white polystyrene being exposed. So we switched to 3mm black foam core board. We removed the paper front and back, which revealed a nice compressed foam surface. This reacted at a really good speed to the acetone, but quickly formed a sticky, molten skin that just didn't want to break. We were getting close. Next we glued a penny to the underside of the surface to give it some encouragement, and voila. Beneath the sheet was a simple cavity that was fed smoke from our microfogger. These tests were just the beginning, but crucial in getting familiar with the materials, and in the end we developed a more elaborate and controllable method to use for both the arm and floor burn acid effects. In our scene, a humble clipboard is the acid blood's first victim, and we felt that if this acid was strong enough to eat through anything in seconds, it would make pretty short work of this flimsy office staple. We know that we're only going to hold on this shot for a second, so the acetone needs to work fast, but the truth is, it doesn't. So we lower our camera's frame rate to about 16 frames a second. Having already decided we'd cut into the shot just after the impact, we pre-cut the paper hole and wet it down at the edges. We capture our melt, then use our microfogger to give us that molecular acid burn. All of our effects happen in the third lighting state of the film, where we have lots of moving and strobing lights in darkness. These lamps we're using not only have a flash effect, but the ability to change the speed of the flash, so anytime we shoot off speed, we adjust the lighting to match. The idea is to show just a few frames of the hole widening, having already made contact in the preceding shot. This keeps us moving to something more impressive, the acid eating through the floor. During testing for the arm burn shots, we came up with the idea of creating a vacuum with 2 syringes and some tubing. JP's made a housing for the plunger syringe. He fixes it to a sheet of foam board and we rig it low enough for Pete to be able to place his foot on it. We get a plate of his foot retracting and then run takes with the acetone melting on the surface while we pull on the syringe plunger to make it sink into the cavity. We captured these elements for our 2 surface burn shots using AB smoke. It's nasty stuff and generally frowned upon in the industry because it's, well, mildly carcinogenic, so we shot these in very controlled conditions. But let's be honest, melting holes in inanimate objects will only get you so many clicks. I mean, so far.
Ash, can you hear me? Ash!
Yes, I can hear you.
What was your special order?
To encourage all those watching to help keep InCamera alive by supporting them on Patreon. Priority 1. All other priorities rescinded.
What about YouTube, you son of a bitch?
The algorithm favors creators who produce quick content at high volume with clickbait titles. And the ad revenue's a joke as well.
Bullshit.
Patreon offers sustainability for long-form, independent creators.
You admire it.
I admire its purity, its independence. Those who can afford to support creators for those who can't. A model based on kindness.
I've heard enough of this, and I'm asking you to pull the plug.
Ripley. Like and subscribe.
In the first of the 2 shots, we see Pete's arm sizzle and melt as the acid mines its way from the surface skin right through his arm. But we didn't pull this all off in one take. It's actually several shots composited into one. We obviously start with a shot of Pete's real arm, but a static shot is no good here. We need the camera to move in, heightening the moment. Right, acid time. Sadly, we're not going to be dissolving Pete's arm for reals. Apparently he needs it. Nope, we need prosthetics. We created these pieces with the guiding hand of our good friend, prosthetics designer Sangeet Prabhakar. Sangeet kindly gifted us this reinforced silicone arm cast that he had, which we used for our probe lens shot. Both prosthetics feature the same cavity, the base of which is a short section of 40mm conduit tube. I sculpt the interior detail of the cavity as a flattened surface, which we'll then make casts from. We make a mould out of plaster, then pour in silicone. Once that's set, we have our internal detail ready for painting. Using the same mould from our arm cast, we made several forearm pieces using gelatin. We chose gelatin because of how it sizzles and melts under high heat. To make our short meltable arm sections, we first pour our skin layer, then let it set. We then use a piece of the conduit tube and some clay to create a bung. We place it at the spot where the acid will make the hole and pour in the remaining gelatin. During our testing, the gelatin melted and bubbled really well, but it refused to collapse. We tried scoring the underside to thin and weaken it, we glued a penny to it to try and weigh it down, but the molten liquid just kept maintaining an unbroken surface. So we needed suction. Using 2 syringes and some tubing, we found our answer. I make a rudimentary platform for the pieces to sit on with one of our tube cavities fixed through it. Then we sit the gelatin cast on top, roll camera, and hit it with a blowtorch. We originally planned to shoot this motion controlled, but DMXing all the lighting into a program move with the slider was all going to take too long. So we went for a simpler approach which we knew would work. But first we needed to line up our prosthetic arm piece to match the position of Pete's arm in the plate shot, using still grabs from our monitor. So what we're going to do is use this as our plate shot, and then we're going to composite 3 stages of our burn, our melt, into this plate. So at the top of the shot, that's where we're going to just have a locked off shot, firing at our gelatin piece and just have it bubbling. So we're going to get all of that fizzing, top of the skin melting. At this point, we then have got another grab that we then line up our prosthetic to, and that's when we're going to do the collapsing part of it. Then we get to the end of the plate, which is here, and that's where we're going to shoot the cavity as it starts to bubble down. With the syringe fixed inside the cavity providing a platform, we shoot some gelatin bubbling and sinking. Then we do some more takes with bicarb mixed with vinegar for that white fleshy bubbliness. Naturally, after this gruesome shot, we need to cut to Pete's reaction. But what if that reaction is the start of a far more interesting and revealing shot where we see the full extent of Pete's wound?
You want some? Yo, you can't say like and subscribe, motherfucker!
We specifically chose a 40mm tube for the cavity because you can push a probe lens through it. I just really like the idea of pulling back from Pete's face through the cavity as it spurts and smokes. And I don't think it's ever been done before as a purely in-camera effect. Maybe this. Probably loads of people have done it, what do I know? For this shot we use the full silicone arm cast from Sangeet's workshop. I stick it on a magic arm and figure out the shot so I can choose the right spot for the burn, then drill a 40mm hole for the cavity. We drill holes and run 10mm medical tubing into opposite sides of the cavity for fluids, and then a third for smoke. We cut corresponding holes into the latex interior piece and then glue it into the cavity with contact adhesive. I tidy up the seam and the edges with more latex and then give it a final paint job. I'm having to do the paint job on this prosthetic because Sangeet can't make it, he's got the lurg. And so I'm stepping in as prosthetic makeup artist, and I had no idea. No, it's not. I kind of know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing. I've watched him do it, so I've watched a professional, and I'm just kind of. It's all about layers. It's all about layers, apparently. So I've got some blues in there and some reds in there, and then I'm covering it up with pinks and whites and things like that. Once we've lined up our shot, we prep the fluid and smoke lines. We're using our microfogger to feed the smoke line as it creates more of a vapor than a smoke, which is perfect for an acid burn. And we're using oat milk for the synthetic blood.
Spurter! Actually, the end is quite good. Maybe we just don't put too much in so we get good.
There's a lot to get right in a shot like this. As we run takes, we tweak things here and there, adding wet tissue to give us more fleshy chunks, improving the fluid feed, or realizing that the arm looks best when actually being moved slightly, rather than it just sitting there as a static object. This is one of those really satisfying effect shots when you know that when you call cut on it, it's all there, in camera. We've chosen to focus solely on the acid effects in this episode, as that was really the sole reason for creating our scene. But because we love alien movies so much, we may have gotten a little carried away. Shooting on a VP stage and building a console covered in monitors and switches to give us some separation from the wall, crafting the iconic Raycal mini-light headsets as seen in the first two movies and many others, sculpting a puppeteered alien tail, and of course, the pulse rifle. Based of course on the recent redesign in Romulus. Make sure you like and subscribe and turn on notifications as we'll be posting JP's Bench episodes covering all of these prop builds. We just want to say a huge thank you to Distortion Studios for helping us make this happen, and to our amazing crew who gave their time and skills to make something very silly. Hold the line, caller. So, as we come down from our overly elaborate acid binge, all that remains is for me to plead with you to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends, your enemies, your pets, I don't know. We're on Instagram, reluctantly on Facebook and Shitter, and we are running a Patreon, so if you would like to help support the channel and keep us sharing, please do go there. This is Tommy from the Spaceship InCamera, signing off.